A very warm welcome to all present here today attending this high-level political forum side event co-hosted by UNICEF and the group of friends of children and SDGs. Today's agenda focuses on protecting the rights of every child in the digital environment, public and private partnerships to support child's rights in a digital age and bridge the digital divide. My name is Nakshatra and I'm a student in Year 12 at Dover Court International School, Singapore, and it is a pleasure for me to be moderating today's event. Firstly, I would like to invite all the attendees to benefit from the live simultaneous translations into French, Spanish, and Arabic if they so please. Now, moving into the agenda in hand, today we'll be discussing the impact of technology on young people. Over the past few weeks, I had the opportunity to discuss this topic with many of my peers who seem deeply affected by the overwhelming presence of technology in their daily lives, especially over the past 2 highly isolating years. They divulged that the addictive capabilities of technology today were so strong that it was hard to stay away from them for long. Cookies, algorithms, and many other softwares have been designed to target today's digital users and keep them online for longer. Although a decisive marketing strategy, when applied to a young, developing audience, such mechanisms can have detrimental effects. As a result of today's digital environment, an exponentially growing fraction of youth face mental health issues and cyberbullying, as well as many other adversities. Yet, technology has also supported us through the last 2 years. Education during COVID times could not have continued without the aid of technology. Quite ironically, even today, it is technology that enables us to discuss its very impact on children. Thus, we can see that this is a medium that has its advantages as well as its disadvantages. So, to look deeper into this issue, I would like to invite Her Excellency, Ms. Anne-Françoise Baster, Deputy Permanent Representative of Luxembourg, co-chair of the Group of Friends of Children and SDG, for the opening remarks on this agenda.
Good morning, dear colleagues, and thank you so much, Nakshatra, for moderating the discussion today. I think we can already see now that we are in very, very able hands. On behalf of the co-chairs of the Group of Friends of Children and SDGs, Bulgaria, Jamaica, and my own country, Luxembourg, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all to the yearly HLPF Side Event. We are honored to be joined today by representatives from the UN system, civil society, the private sector, as well as child and youth advocates. The topic of today's discussion is highly pertinent, as children and young people are spending more and more time online. Connectivity has become an integral feature of our everyday lives. It has become essential to online learning and provides children and young people with an immense opportunity that the previous generation did not have growing up. Access to information and online resources from around the world, anywhere you are and at any time. The many undeniable advantages of connectivity make the lack thereof all the more acute. Even before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, half of the world's population did not have access to the internet. The pandemic has further exposed deep inequalities in access to digital technology. It has effectively shown that being offline means being left behind. If we are to reach the most vulnerable children, we have urgently to bridge the digital divide. However, the digital environment is also not risk-free. From cyberbullying to online abuse, connectivity can pose significant risks to the rights, health, safety, and well-being of children and young people. This is why it is critical that we facilitate a digital environment that is free from abuse and exploitation and that provides the same opportunities for children everywhere. To do this, we need to ensure that digital resources are distributed in a way that is equitable and safe for every child. The ever-changing and evolving landscape of the digital environment also requires innovative policies and initiatives. I look forward to hearing from all our speakers today on their perspective and innovative idea on how to best navigate the digital environment in order to protect the right to quality education for every child in line with SDG 4 of the 2030 agenda. With this short introduction, I hand the floor back to Nakshatra, and I wish everybody a very interesting discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Daster, for your remarks. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Catherine Russell, UNICEF Executive Director, for their keynote speech on technology and its impact on young people.
Thank you so much, Nakshatra. I really appreciate it. I'd like to really greet everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm very happy to be here. I'd also very much like to recognize and thank the co-chairs of the group of children in the SDGs, the permanent rep of Luxembourg, Anne, who you just heard from, Bulgaria and Jamaica, for their commitment to championing children's rights. I'm especially excited that we're joined today by two of UNICEF's amazing youth advocates, Gitanjali Rao and Aramaya Lohia, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of our remarkable panelists, including representatives from the government of Kenya and SRSG Mala Majid, as well as Microsoft, Ericsson, the Lego Group, and ChildFund Alliance. Today's event is a continuation of a conversation about protecting children's rights in the digital environment that began really in 2021 in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic and remote learning. In the digital world, it is up to all of us to make sure that the internet is a safe place for children to learn, to socialize, and to express themselves. We're definitely not there yet. I recently learned that the World Wide Web and the Convention on the Rights of the Child were born in the same year, 1989. In those early days, I doubt anyone, apart from a handful of technologists, really understood how radically and rapidly digital technology might change the world, let alone childhood. Today, we know that it has reshaped childhood and adolescence in profound ways, creating new opportunities for sure, and new risks to children's rights. I doubt that anyone truly considered how quickly digital disparity would grow, how deeply it might impact the life chances of those who lack access to digital technology. And certainly no one imagined the impact of a global pandemic and how critical access to the internet would be for children during school closures and lockdowns. We certainly can't imagine it now. In fact, one of the biggest lessons we have learned during the pandemic is that we need to do more to ensure that the rights of digitalization reach every child in every situation. So I would like to take a moment to discuss two aspects of this complex challenge: connectivity and life online. First, connectivity. Given the ubiquity of digital technology in our lives, it is difficult to imagine that globally an estimated 2.9 billion people, over a third of the global population, still don't have access to the internet. The majority are living in low and middle income countries. At the height of the pandemic, up to 1.6 billion children were affected by school closures. Many children were fortunate enough to have access to remote classes, but hundreds of millions were not. Digital exclusion impacts the children who are already most likely to be farthest behind. Children growing up in the poorest places, children affected by conflicts and crises, children with disabilities, and often girls. These children may never develop the digital skills they need to succeed in our digital world, perpetuating cycles of exclusion and poverty and limiting sustainable growth. Today, we estimate that at least 1.3 billion children still cannot access the internet at home, and only about half the world's schools are able to provide online services. GIGA, you'll hear about this more today, I'm sure, a joint initiative developed by UNICEF and ITU, is trying hard to change that. GIGA does three things. It maps how many schools have internet access, it creates innovative financing models to increase access, and it supports government's capacity to contract more effectively for connectivity. Since 2019, GIGA has connected over 3,800 schools and over 1.3 million children to the internet, with the ambitious goal of connecting 2.8 million schools and 500 million children to the internet by 2030. So we have a long way to go. And this is only one initiative, but it points in the right direction. The second thing I want to touch on briefly is the reality of children's lives online and the urgent need to keep them safe from harm wherever they are. The pandemic certainly revealed the critical necessity of digital access when it comes to learning. And the internet has also been a social lifeline for people of all ages, helping maintain connections during times of isolation and providing children with the chance to interact with peers and to express themselves. We need to make sure every child can enjoy those benefits. And as they spend more time online, we need to protect them from increased risk to their safety, their privacy, and their autonomy. Technology is becoming more embedded and invisible in children's lives than ever before. Digital assistants and cameras and behind-the-scenes software like algorithms and predictive analytics can compromise children's privacy and well-being. Digitally enabled sexual abuse and exploitation is a serious threat. UNICEF's research in 12 countries indicates that up to 20% of children suffered online sexual exploitation and abuse in the past year. UNICEF and our partners are working to help countries respond to these threats and prevent them in the first place. Many countries have experienced such rapid growth in digital technologies that they have not been able to keep pace with infrastructure upgrades and child-focused legislation and regulation that's really there to protect children. UNICEF and our partners are working to support country efforts to keep children safe online, from national online child protection plans in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cambodia, and Kenya, to new criminal laws in Zimbabwe and legislative reforms in the Philippines and Thailand. We are also working more closely than ever with the private sector. Businesses have enormous power in shaping children's online experiences. They have an opportunity and a very serious responsibility to use this power to protect child rights and improve children's lives. The Children's Rights and Business Principles developed 10 years ago by UNICEF, the UN Global Compact, and Save the Children have been embraced by business around the world as they work to address the potentially negative impact of their products on children. UNICEF is also working with companies and other stakeholders to create practical tools, including analysis and guidance on digital marketing and support for data governance to protect child rights. Finally, we know we need to educate and empower children so they can navigate the digital environment safely. Parents, carers, and teachers need training and support to help children develop critical reasoning and digital literacy skills, and to provide other information so they can better protect themselves. Just as important, we need to make sure children have a voice in shaping the digital environment. After all, they are its most active users. We need their perspectives and their participation in the design and delivery of policies, as well as the products and services they use every single day. Excellencies, partners, many of the challenges we face to protect children's rights are extremely difficult to overcome. Bridging the digital divide should not be one of them, not when we have the technology and the ability to close that gap. We simply need to find the will. This is a collective challenge, and it yields a collective benefit. We will all benefit from a world where children's privacy is respected online and offline, where children are protected from harm wherever they are, and where every child can develop the digital skills they need to make the most of their lives in the digital future. I look forward to working with all of you and to hearing from all of you today, and thank you all so much for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Ms. Russell, for your input on this issue. Now, I would like to invite us all to move into today's interactive panel. Our panel will have two main parts. One focused on bridging the digital divide, and the second part on life online. We're joined by 8 panelists from different sectors. I would like to welcome Dr. Najat Malamjid, Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children. From the public sector, we are joined by Dr. Kiprono Paul Rono, CEO of the Kenyan ICT Authority. Welcome, Dr. Rono. We're also excited to have 3 private sector partners. A very warm welcome to Ms. Heather Johnson, who is the Vice President of Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility at Ericsson. Mr. Ed Lewin, the Vice President of Government and Public Affairs at the Lego Group. And Mr. Joe Brazier, Worldwide K-12 Strategy Manager at Microsoft. Representing civil society and a major child-focused agency, we have Ms. Meg Gardinier, Secretary General of ChildFund Alliance. Finally, it is important that children and young people's voices are present when discussing issues that affect them. And today our panel is joined by a young scientist, UNICEF Youth Advocate and Times First Kid of the Year, Gitanjali, and North Anglia education student and advocate for online safety and digital detox, Arena. So very warm welcome to all the panelists. Now, to begin with our panel, I would like to invite Ms. Malam Jid, SRSG back, with a question to sort of set the scene of what we're discussing today. So in your work, you emphasize that the connection between empowering children and ensuring that they are protected is important. So how do you think the internet can be used to empower children while also being a source of help and protection for them?
Thank you, Nakshatra. And good morning, everybody. So happy to be with you for this interactive dialogue that it's timely. Yes, sure. In my work, I am always emphasizing the connection between empowering children and protecting them. I think these two sides had always to be connected. And because, as it was highlighted since the beginning, children, we know, are living in an increasingly digital and connected world. And we know also that we have huge number of people who are connected. Around 1 in 3 are children under 18, and we have more and more younger children who are connected. So it's really important to a range of devices and platforms. But as highlighted, Catherine Russell also, many children are still not connected. And if we need to empower, we need to address the digital gap and mainly to reach the most vulnerable. This is very, very important to make sure that they are not left behind. This is important just to take into account. But what is important, I want to really highlight how empowerment is important. And what means empowerment? Because in many cases we are using wording, and I think this is important. If we need really to use internet to empower children, to make them more, active, more protected, more involved, we need also to provide them with means, first, to access to information, to allow them to share it with others, to connect with their peers, to express themselves, and to voice opinions and issues and concerns, and mainly coming from children who are living in remote communities, war zone, and vulnerable children, because children who otherwise would not have a voice. And in more and more cases, and we are seeing it, affecting real social change. Giving them opportunities for civic engagement, for learning, for communicating and creating activities that are central to children's life. Another point is also empowering means developing and helping children to develop their digital skills, to protect themselves and others online, to promote and defend their rights, including as activists and human rights and environmental defenders, to reach out to support services, to make complaints and report violence if needed, and to make sure that they are not facing stigma and they are not facing taboo, and they are doing it in a safe and protective way, to allow them and to amplify all their initiatives, to really allow them to build peer networks and also strong movements. And also what is important and what we are seeing more and more is this intergenerational dialogue. And I think it's really, really important. And we know that even before the pandemic, children were using online means really to express themselves, to access to information, but also to access to protection and support. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, with the isolation, with disruption of many services, including education, we saw a huge number of initiatives undertaken worldwide by children, really to provide support, to raise awareness, provide psychosocial support, to provide also counseling, guidance regarding when you can protect, to really fight the isolation. And I think it was wonderful. And we need to make sure that this will continue and will be supported. My mandate did a mapping, just for examples, of children's initiative worldwide. And it's long, and we are all each day updating it, because children and young people are going more quickly than adults. And just for some example, a 70-year-old Polish girl decided to launch a fake online shop to offer a lifeline to victims of violence trapped in their home because of fear of stigma and to report. Through this fake cosmetic website, the victim can hide requests for help from their abuser at home by appearing to be shopping online. In Romania, children have developed, I just met them, apps to report instances of violence, including cyberbullying and harassment. Worldwide, you know better than me, youth-led organizations such as Restless Development created the Feeling Restless campaign. Through this campaign website, they are sharing ideas with young people on ways to support and protect others while being in lockdown during the COVID-19. In Bangladesh, Jordan, Malawi, Pakistan, and Tunisia, a youth-led digital skills movement has taught tens of thousands of young people to code and is active in empowering children by providing digital skills with a focus on gender inclusiveness. In Chad, Superbanat, in Latin America, Tremendous, is fighting and really for addressing, raising awareness, mobilizing through social media regarding gender-based violence, gender discrimination, and promoting gender equality. The list is long, and you have in India a wonderful network of children on street that did wonderful network among themselves to provide guidance, psychosocial support, and help. So this, we have many, many examples, and we continue to gather examples on how children, when they are empowered, they have access, their creativity, their solidarity, their resilience is really wonderful, and activism are being channeled through online means. Recently, my mandate with UNICEF, ITU, and other also launched protection through online participation earlier this year. And this scope aims to understand how children and young people use online means to access safety and protection, such as peer-to-peer support. And POP is currently mapping services that are provided online, providing online support for children, as well as child and youth-led online protection solutions. It will then assess their effectiveness and identify the benefits and challenges of online approach. So far, POP has received over 2,500 responses. Initiative will demonstrate how the internet is not a source of threat of children. It can also be a source of protection and empowerment. And lastly, we just launched Let's Tell the World, a social media campaign to allow children to share their actions, showing that they can make, and they are making, the world safe, inclusive, just, equal, healthy, and empowering. So I think we cannot only pushing on child safeguarding, this is important, protecting children, but also using internet as a strong tool of empowerment. I hope I respond to your question.
Yes, thank you so much for your very enriching response. We really appreciate it. So now I would like to go into, I would like to ask Mr. Rono a question. So we know that many children still do not have access to the internet or digital technologies. So this portion is dedicated about bridging the digital divide. And Mr. Rono, from your work as in the ICT authority in Kenya, I would like you to share your experience and good practice on this matter. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was estimated that over 17 million children and young people in Kenya had their learning interrupted during school closures. And this highlights the critical importance of accelerating connectivity, especially in the most marginalized and remote areas, so students can continue their learning. Dr. Rono, could you share, please, and describe how the government of Kenya and GIGA have been working together to scale up the connectivity, and what are the ingredients for success in your view, and how can we replicate this in other parts of the world?
All right, thank you, Nakasha. Good afternoon. In Kenya, it is evening. It's around 3 o'clock, 3:30. Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning, everybody. I would like, first of all, to appreciate this type of discussion and the invite. Let me say that Kenya, in terms of development in this space, when it comes to digital space, Kenya leads in terms of deployment of devices to schools for teaching and learning. Over the last 5 years, we've managed to deploy over 1.2 million devices to 98% of our basic primary schools, which are around 24,000. We have upper secondary schools, which are around 15,000, which we are yet to also deploy devices. And this particular program, when you look at it by the standard of Africa, I think we are leading in Africa when it comes to deployment of devices for use in teaching and learning in our schools. As we are running out this program, we had around 4 components of the program. And I think when you talk about digital divide, we are not only talking about one element. And also we are also not only talking about schools which are very remote or areas which are very remote. Digital divide also happen in urban centers, because for you really to close the whole issue of digital divide, there are 4 critical items you must look into. There is the item of connectivity, yes. There is also the device, because you can connect the community, but there is no access equipment or device or a tool to use in that particular environment. And the third one, there is need for the training. You can connect somebody else's device, but he doesn't understand what the device and the connectivity is for. So training is part of it. And the fourth one is what is called the product and service, depending on the requirement of that particular individual. Like in education, we connect, we provide devices, and we train so that they can use for teaching and learning. But in other areas, it depends on what the product and services you are looking for, so that you can really close on this issue of digital divide. It is not only connectivity. There are 4 components to close digital divide. And when it comes to some urban areas, you can realize that there are people or individuals without devices, yet there is connectivity, or with connectivity, but no training, or with all those ones, but there is no service. What is it for? So let me come specifically to education. At first, we thought as Kenyan and as a country leading in Africa, in terms of deployment of technology in education, we thought we have done it very well. But when COVID came, it really took us by surprise, because we realized that despite the devices we have in almost every public primary schools, the devices are in school and the children are at home. So they were still unable to use these devices in teaching and learning in their homes. Reason being, one, our education policy is different. You learn from a classroom, a 4x4 corners of a classroom. So we discovered that there is need to change our education policy to provide learning beyond the normal classroom, so that we talk about learning spaces, not the classrooms. We need to talk about learning spaces. You can learn when you are in hospital bed, if your organs are okay. You can also learn wherever you are. So that particular idea came during COVID, that despite the fact that we have devices in schools, we have trained teachers very well, and we have provided content, but the learner and the teacher are in a different place. We need to take kids to school, which the policy said learning takes place in school. So that was another problem, which we felt that going forward now, we are reviewing our education policy to allow learning spaces as opposed to learning in a specific area or a specific place or a specific schools. It doesn't matter which schools you go to. What happens is your competency, your qualification. We are able to do 1, 2, 3, and that should be the way forward. It doesn't matter what university you go to. What matters is your competency at the end of it all. Now, so when we discovered this, we went ahead and tried to change our education policy to ensure that it allows learning beyond the classroom. The other thing which we had not done, because among the 4 components, the training of teachers, the devices in the schools, and the content, we are not, and electricity to schools, what we had not done was connectivity. And connectivity, when you talk about the Kenyan environment, you are talking about almost in 24,000 schools, 5,000 schools are in remote areas. So in terms of internet penetration, in Kenya, we are talking about 96% internet penetration in Kenya. But in this area of education, we had a problem because we are not connected any public primary schools, and therefore access to education and access to content when you talk about child online protection. Because in Kenya, we made sure that all our children access content from a specific cloud infrastructure, which enough protection to really protect the kids from what is called cyberbullying. So we have that policy, and all the learning materials are in a secure environment. But what happened here is connectivity became a problem, and that is where we met with UNICEF, and also we met with Kika, and we met with other key stakeholders. The first step, we realize that connectivity, connecting all the public primary schools is quite a challenge. It requires funding, it requires resources. But we have an existing infrastructure which we have deployed across the country. We are calling it the fiber optic infrastructure around 9,000 kilometers, which has reached almost around 20,000 schools can access it from 1 kilometer to 5 kilometers range. And then we say as government, for purposes of sustainability, because the schools may not be able to pay what is called recurrent costs, can we connect all schools to this particular infrastructure? And UNICEF and Kika came and they have connected 200 schools as a pilot. In the 200 schools which we have done and do some assessment, there's been a lot of success to an extent that the government has moved forward and said, we need to come up now with a master plan for connectivity of all the schools in this country, which are 40,000 schools, primary and secondary schools. At the same time, we need to create what is called digital villages, 24,000 digital villages to allow learning beyond the school environment so that even the parent is able to learn and also learn with the children, because we have a new program where parents must participate in terms of learning. So when we introduce this master plan, we are looking forward now for resources to deploy internet to all the schools. And in the master plan, we want to deploy 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable to cover all the schools in this country, including and then another model for the remote areas. We are looking for satellite technologies to cover the remote areas of this country in another model. And we believe that when we roll out this program, we'll be able to reach all the schools. At the same time, we'll reach the villages also, so that there is learning beyond the schools and the parents in the village are also able to assist, because we want to train almost 20 million Kenyans in terms of digital literacy, because we felt that as you deploy technology, there is need to really educate the public so that it is not only the learner and the teacher who is learning, but also the parent is also aware of what the child is learning in the schools, because when it comes to technology, there is need to create that environment for both the parent and the teacher and the learner. So I think I can rest it there for the time being, and then you can ask more questions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rono. That really helped us understand how we might be able to bridge the digital divide as seen from Kenya. Now, looking at the Giga initiative, which brings together public and private sector partners, I would like to invite Ms. Johnson from Ericsson to share with us about Ericsson's role in Giga and why it is important for such partnerships to exist and why it is important for you.
Thank you, Nakshatra. And it's wonderful to be part of this panel and to be discussing such an important topic with such esteemed partners and colleagues. Ericsson was founded in 1876 by a young Swedish engineer who believed that communication was a basic human need and should be available for all. And if we fast forward over 140 years to today, connectivity is the backbone of economy and society. And as many have noted, that was clearly evidenced during the global pandemic. Without access to connectivity, children are more likely to have limited access to quality education and lose out on opportunities of social and economic empowerment later in life. In 2020, Ericsson announced a global partnership with UNICEF to support its Giga initiative, and it aims to connect every school to the internet by 2030. And this is a strong collaboration with Ericsson, UNICEF, the ITU, and other partners. Before the Giga initiative can connect schools, however, it needs to understand where the connectivity gaps are. And this is where Ericsson's expertise is vital. Ericsson is supporting UNICEF and Giga to map school connectivity across 35 countries. Ericsson was the first private sector partner to make a multi-million-dollar commitment to Giga. But beyond funding, we're contributing with in-kind expertise in connectivity, experience with mobile operator data, and know-how on data science. Ericsson is helping to collect, validate, analyze, visualize, and monitor school connectivity data. As a company, we have decades of experience working with mobile operator data to extract valuable insights as well as deep information and communications technology expertise, which is crucial to the mapping project's success in order to fully understand where connectivity does and does not exist across communities and schools. And I'm pleased to say that to date, we have contributed to the school connectivity mapping in more than 30 countries. At Ericsson, digital inclusion is core to all we do and really connected to our founder's vision. We believe that access to the internet is vital for every individual, including children, to thrive. We also believe that technology has a pivotal role to play in accelerating the achievement of the Sustainable Development Agenda. But no one entity can solve the problem alone, and that is why dialogue like this one is so important. It's crucial to join forces across sectors and across borders to achieve impact and scale. Our work with UNICEF on Giga provides us with the opportunity to contribute to a leading global effort, which was recognized in the UN Secretary General's Roadmap for Digital Cooperation as a groundbreaking public-private partnership. The collective effort of the Giga Initiative has the capabilities to secure wider public and private support to help ensure that all individuals get access to meaningful, connected digital technology and can use it in a responsible, safe, and empowering way. Giga provides an unprecedented opportunity for a multi-stakeholder coalition to help bridge the digital divide that Executive Director Russell so eloquently outlined at the start and contribute to sustainable and equitable access to quality education for all children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Brazier from Microsoft to share with us his view on what actions need to be taken to ensure that children who have intermittent access or no internet access still have benefit from the use of technology in their learning.
Hello, everyone. And thanks again, as everyone has said, thanks for this opportunity. Coming from Microsoft, a private sector perspective, but my own background in coming into this is actually from the education sector, from special education, providing assistance to those with additional needs. And when thinking about what do we need to do to provide this assistance for those that need it, one of the things that really comes to mind initially is having a clear plan, a good vision and a clear plan. Dr. Rono earlier talked about they had to change their policies. You need to make sure that there's a vision in everything and things come together. When looking at a problem or a challenge like this, you can get very scattered. And what we want to do is make sure that we're very clear with the plan of what it is that we want to accomplish. And so being able to do things like creating access for students, regardless of where they are or the level of connectivity, being able to get that access to work across multiple devices, whether it's this platform, a smartphone, or that platform, being able to provide access to a student record, right? That data of learning to be able to follow the student is another crucial and important piece. And that's what our partnership with UNICEF has kind of started and been able to do with that learning passport. And those are important things to do. And that's what we've tried to address with that. But I think what's important is not just the what, not just the passport, but the impact that it's had and been able to highlight. If you look at the videos and things on the website or around the learning passport, there were a couple of things that students said that really stuck out to me. You're able to create multiple pathways of learning. You're able to give kids options and things like that. And so it gives them the ability to dream. Right? The ability to think that there are things that I can become, things that I can do, things that I'm not restricted to being, right? So this idea of being able to empower students through equitable education gives them more opportunities and opportunities that they can actually see themselves achieving and striving towards. And within that, you're able to build self-confidence within the students and the teachers, and also build agency so that they are an active participant driving and directing their learning, right? Being able to moderate panels and things such as this I have a huge admiration for the students who are in this environment right now with us. But there's a feeling of value that comes with that, right? So when you have those options and that ability to dream about what you can be and what you can become, and you have that confidence and you feel that what you're doing and who you are as a person is valued, then you start to get a bit more creative and you start to see how you can innovate. And those are the things that within education, we want to amplify and bring to the surface, right? And bring that innovation and creativity to the students, to the educators, to the education leaders, bring them to the families and the communities and really build that up. And then it gives us the opportunity with that clear vision to start to improve and iterate and continue to expand things like the learning passport, right? To be able to serve more students in more areas, in more ways. And when we do that, then that impact that we just discussed begins to amplify, begins to grow exponentially, right? And we get to have a greater impact on the world. These are the kind of things that I came from special education to Microsoft. These are the kind of things that I came to this company to be able to do. And it's nice to know that a place like Microsoft, which is a productivity company, right? We want to see and make sure that people are able to work and able to grow and able to become the best versions of themselves and have that positive impact on the world, that we're able to empower others around the world to do that. And so being able to partner with people like UNICEF and partners like UNICEF and the work that you're doing here to reach out, we want to support that and be able to help and do that. And so access to the internet, I will date myself. I used computers and Microsoft tools before the internet was productive with it then. When the internet came on, it allowed more capabilities, more accessibility, more equity, more reach. And they kind of still keep to the roots of being able to say, yes, there's great things you can do with the internet, but there's also amazing things you can do without, and being able to heighten, amplify, and give everybody access to learning that works for them so that they can dream and be innovative is what we're continuing to work towards. Thank you. I'll let us move on to the next question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brazier. Dr. Rono, we see the value of technology to support and complement students' learning it's large. And my next question relates to connectivity and safety. How are the government of Kenya and GIGA working together to identify and mitigate the risks and that may cause harm to children in the digital world today? Dr. Rono, are you able to connect, or should we move on to the next question for now? Okay, we can move on to the next question for now, and then we'll come back. So, Ms. Johnson, Ericsson has been working for more than a decade on empowerment of learners and educators through digital education. Based on your experience, why should companies invest time and resources into public-private partnerships for digital education and inclusion? And what impact can such partnerships have on children's lives?
Well, the increasing digitalization of society is setting new requirements on individuals' abilities to engage and participate in digital activities in both professional and personal contexts. And so in addition to access to meaningful connectivity, it's also crucial that children and youth have the right tools and skills to fully participate in the digital economy. I think, as was expressed and outlined at the start of this panel, really, truly being and empowering. Ericsson, through our global program Connect to Learn, advocates for inclusivity and equity in the use of technology for education. And as such, we develop and deploy digital learning platforms and content aimed at children and youth, learners, and educators. We believe that public-private partnerships like the GIGA initiative have an important role to play in the proliferation of relevant, high-quality digital tools, content, and training for open and free access to education to all children, particularly the most disadvantaged. And this cross-sector collaboration and effort should be aligned with national digital development strategies, as we heard from Dr. Rono, in order to leverage the benefits across a number of systems that could be from digital banking, healthcare, data management, as well as digital learning. The growing gap between the demand and offer for digital skills in the labor market calls for strong public-private action to address the issue of a digitally divided society. And specifically, the private sector can help governments identify and map the labor market skill gaps for today and the upcoming years, as well as contribute to the upskilling of the future workforce so that they are employment ready. To give you a few examples of what we're doing concretely at Ericsson, we deploy educational courses related to digital skills development for children and youth. The Ericsson Digital Lab is one such initiative aimed at children aged 11 to 16 and is designed to inspire them to explore new technologies and develop their critical thinking and problem-solving skills in a collaborative and creative way. We've also been working with partners from the UNESCO Global Education Coalition, namely a global NGO called Technovation, to promote digital skills for girls across the globe, providing Ericsson employees the opportunity to mentor hundreds of girls to learn and apply the skills needed to solve real-world problems through technology. The girls learn how to be entrepreneurs and problem solvers, innovate with technology while learning about programming, app development, and artificial intelligence. Ultimately, our ambition is to empower children and young people to be contributors to technology rather than just consumers of it, providing the tools and skills to safely and responsibly engage in the digital world. We aim to further scale evidence-based initiatives in a concerted way that leads to relevant and sustainable impact on youth empowerment in this ever-changing world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Brazier, when the pandemic hit, Microsoft and UNICEF were able to quickly pivot and expand the Learning Passport initiative. Based on your experience, how can the public and private sector work together to ensure continuity of learning in the face of global shocks?
I love that phrase of continuity of learning. It was one of the things that we heard very early in the pandemic as we looked at and spoke with leaders around the world. They were trying to do a quick switch and do school at home. I'll reference Dr. Rono again, who was saying that some education systems weren't prepared. It was a quick switch. How do we do that when everything was set to be at school, and now they were doing it at home? And we thought, well, let's just put kids in front of the screen and we'll continue teaching and learning as is. What was learned pretty quickly is that there was a need for a continuity of connection. We had to keep the people connected, the kids connected to one another, the teachers connected to the students, the leaders connected to the educators. We had to maintain that connectivity of people and create those equitable experiences. One of the things to ensure that we continue to work together between public and private sector is the ideas around skills and competencies, right? We need to develop the workforce, right? We've got 21st century skills, which were really grown during this period of pandemic learning. A lot of things were theoretical. Kids were like, you need to be computational thinkers, critical thinkers, you got to problem solve, you got to do all these things. And then everybody was thrust into this challenging situation to where we needed to be creative. We needed to think creatively. We needed to think equitably for everyone and do a lot of these things. Students on the back end of this, with whether their learning was interrupted, the equity gaps widened, the path of what they should have learned in school is different from where they were coming out of it. They did pick up skills that they probably wouldn't have. And in a sense, many of those skills are what employers are looking for. They're looking for people who can be flexible and resilient and face challenges and be able to get through this. with the capacity also to learn, right? Many times you get into a position, you go to a college sports team, and you're not going to have the skills that they want you to have when you get there, but the capability to get those skills. And I think what many kids have been able to show is that they've got the capability to learn and thrive despite what faces them, right? And so it's an opportunity for public and private sector really to work together on what is the workforce, the expectations of what work of the future is going to be. There's lots of videos and things of how the world of work and social is changing, but how do we develop those workers? Where are they coming from? Who is skilling up those young minds to be able to think for the jobs that may not exist by the time that they get into, by the time they graduate? The jobs that my nephews who are in year 1, year 2, year 3 are going to be applying for may not exist right now. So they're prepping for jobs that don't exist, right? And so they need to be able to have the skills to handle what life throws at them. And when we think about skills, we think about digital literacy skills, and we think about technical certifications. And by we, I mean Microsoft. There are skills that you build by using technology, right? So that's part of that widening gap, is that those who have access to technology build the skills kind of unknowingly, they kind of get accustomed to it. And those that don't really build those baseline skills. But then there's also technical certifications, right? Those who have an aptitude for it, who want to go and grow in these other areas, they will go and build those other technical skills. And it opens up more pathways, as we discussed earlier, right? But along with that, if you think outside of the education or the student standpoint to the educators, when we think about skills from their standpoint, we're looking for pedagogically sound professional development. We're not trying to tell people, hey, here's how you use OneNote. We're telling, here's how you can organize all your curriculums and actually have real-time feedback and impact on your students' learning. And here's a tool called OneNote to do it. So we're trying to help with pedagogically sound professional development to help build the relevant skills and the training for those educators. One of the things that we're seeing around the world is that a lot of educators are feeling burnt out. There is a lot of teachers moving on to other positions, moving out of the classroom. And so this training, these tools, these things that are actually relevant to what they're trying to accomplish, renews that enthusiasm and that love for teaching. It helps retain those teachers who might feel like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I've done what I can and I'm at my wit's end. But we want to help them know there are more kids you can reach. There's more time you can save. There's more ways that you can have an impact and more ways to be creative and innovative in the classroom to teach in a way that works for you so that students can learn in a way that works for them and really bring that love of teaching back into it. So it really comes around this idea of who is it we're trying to have in the workforce and how is it we're trying to get them there. And that's one of the ways that I believe that the public and private sector has an opportunity right now to be much more closely aligned to reimagine who it is they're looking for and how do we build those skills, because our workforce comes from education and education drives our workforce. And so they really need to be working closely together.
I see. Thank you so much, Mr. Brazier. Dr. Rono, we see that the value of technology to support and complement students' learning is it's quite large. And my next question relates to connectivity and safety. How are the government of Kenya and GIGA working together to identify and mitigate the risks that may cause harm to children in the digital world?
All right, thank you. The whole issue of connectivity to schools comes around the component of sustainability. Yes, we realize that connecting schools, you can look for private sector operators, they can connect within a very short time, but the connectivity component is what has really made the government of Kenya a little bit shy over time. But when they came up with the model on how to sustain it, I think now we are ready to go. But let me take you back to what you said about the security. First of all, it is a fact that beyond the classrooms, these children can still access internet with their parents. Because we had a lot of discussion with the Christian and the Muslim community, the religious sector, and there have been a lot of argument on protection. And in our discussion and in our work group, we have brought in all these groups in terms of to engage them in the design and the deployment of this infrastructure and also this solution to make sure that we contain or we meet some of their requirements, so that as we connect the schools and we connect children to technology, these special groups are also, we take their interest seriously and we incorporate in the design and the deployment. And what came out, which really almost stopped us to continue, was the fact that there was a lot of argument on exposing the children to unauthorized internet stuff. And the government of Kenya came up with, was forced immediately to come up with a policy called Child Online Protection Policy, which is also run under one of the agencies within the Ministry of ICT called the Communication Authority, to make sure that they they provide what is called secure network for the children. And within that policy, it directed that we need to make sure that the content which the children are accessing are from secure platforms. And in the design of connectivity, we are connecting all the children to what is called approved learning materials, which is approved by Kenya Education Curriculum Development Agency, which is in charge of approval of all the content. So this agency has got a cloud infrastructure where all the approved content are stored. And therefore, we connect all schools to this particular infrastructure so that as they access the content, we call it the whitelist. We whitelist in the network, we whitelist what the children and the teachers, especially the children, are supposed to access. And with the policy in place, and now with the infrastructure in place, which is only connecting the devices to that particular network, then we believe that we'll be able to save the children from unnecessary access, especially when they are in school. But when they are at home, we also have a program with the parents to create awareness so that as they engage the children in their homes and assist them to learn, the kids are also learning stuff which are sort of educational stuff and stuff which are which meet the standards or their age. So we have an awareness among the parents. We have also a training on teachers, and then we have also connectivity to secure content for children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rono. I would like to invite now Ms. Gardinier from ChildFund Alliance to share her perspective from a child-focused agency on how we can ensure that children and young people can fully benefit from the use of digital technologies, and what role can parents and the community play in this?
Thank you very much for inviting us to speak with you today, and actually to answer this question. It's an important question because digital technologies have radically changed childhood and adolescence in many ways. And technology has literally transformed the way young people both learn and socialize. And we've heard this today from our presenters, from Najat to Dr. Rono to our Microsoft presenter, that there is a threat and an opportunity. That's why it's essential that we help children be what we call effective digital citizens, so that they can fully benefit from the opportunities of an online world while also being protected from online risks. And what does that mean? It means helping children acquire the skills to participate in online civic engagement safely, ethically, and responsibly as part of their healthy development. Digital citizenship is, in fact, one of the two key elements of our recently launched Web Safe and Wise initiative. The other element of our initiative, which is called a campaign, also focuses on protecting children from online sexual exploitation and abuse, which, as we know, is a major threat that children face at an alarming rate on a global scale. To successfully protect children from online threats, we have to ensure that children themselves have the skills to navigate the web safely. And we've talked about this today, about the empowering role of safe navigation and building skill development to open up opportunities for young people to educate and empower them, to provide them with the opportunity to build their skills for future development and open new pathways for economic development. But along the way, we have to make sure that children are safe as they go about this. To achieve this, ChildFund is engaging in activities designed to protect and provide safe learning environments and increasing opportunities for them to use digital technologies effectively and safely. As it's been pointed out by many of the presenters, parents and community members have a big role to play in all of this. Their guidance plays a vital role in ensuring that children navigate the web safely. Just by way of example, we had a presenter from Kenya today, and our ChildFund International USA has a country office in Kenya. They have a very interesting child online protection project, which increases understanding of the internet at the community level, in addition to improving children's awareness of the risks associated with using technology. And it utilizes a train the trainers approach, again, building on what our presenters have told us. Sensitizing parents and youth, working with child protection volunteers, community health workers, and young people themselves who have prior knowledge of child protection safeguards, but maybe need more training as it relates to the online world. And what we've learned through this project is that there is a great need for increased awareness of online risks, as well as for tools that can help children navigate the internet safely. Another example is our member ChildFund Australia is implementing a program known as Swipe Safe. And that project is teaching children and young people core competencies to be safe online. Swipe Safe creates, once again, this safe learning environment that we've spoken about this morning. Once again, as our previous presenters have pointed out, working with parents, mobilizing them, youth, schools, and the private sector to play an active role in strengthening children's online safety. In Swipe Safe, it provides training for parents and internet cafe and game shop owners to identify and address possible online risks for children. So we try to work with that protective environment in which the young people often are living and learning. It also supports schools to coordinate school-based trainings for children and to develop and promote online safety policies and guidelines. Much like the project I mentioned in Kenya, a key innovation of Swipe Safe is that it engages young children with extensive knowledge, these young volunteers with extensive knowledge on technology, who then in turn train other young people on online safety. A survey of the participants, the child participants, show that after completing Swipe Safe, 100% reported knowing at least one method to protect themselves online, and 85% could identify where to go for help if they experienced harm. So we are all, I think, in our own way, moving in that direction, trying to scale up what we do, reach more children, because we recognize while there's threats online, there are also enormous opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gardinier. So now to just summarize what we've learned from this first part of the panel. Firstly, we know that children who would already have been left behind would be further left behind by the lack of internet, as the SRSG back had pointed out. And tech is today even used by children for change. And so it almost gives them this little bit of agency. And unknowingly or knowingly, as Dr. Bono and Mr. Brazier pointed out, baseline skills are implemented and instilled within children from the internet access that they have. It sort of helps point them in the right direction in their future. And connectivity and devices and education are all needed to ensure that the digital divide is bridged. And in doing this, we also need to make sure that children have access to internet today and know how to learn and grow with the internet, and so that they are safe and are away from harm. So we will be transitioning into the second part of the panel, which relates to life online. And to start, I would like to begin with our youth advocates. Reina, how would you describe the impact digital technologies have in the lives of young people today?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. While information and entertainment are both just a finger tap away, the physical world has started to feel increasingly distant, particularly since the beginning of the pandemic. Witnessing my own peers glued to their screens, overloading their lives with more information than human beings should have to handle and process, I have come to the conclusion that there is an inherent need for digital detox within our communities, especially in the age that many experts have termed as the age of disinformation. There is a crucial need to reflect, reevaluate, and reprogram the way we interact with technology. Short attention span driven media optimized for the sheer volume of content driven by metrics of engagement and algorithm backed polarization has had adverse effects on the mental health of many teenagers. While in the short run, the frequency of content consumption results in a spike in the multitasking abilities, the long-term effects of rapid consumption end up in the inability to maintain sustained focus, social skills, and overall happiness. The ability to curate and compare lives in the form of social media posts too has led to a widespread increase in anxiety, depression, and other forms of mental health challenges among impressionable young students around the world. I have been inspired to create meaningful and tangible impact in this respect. First, I began researching ways to impact adolescents in some of their most formative years. Building on this research, in 2021, I authored a comprehensive research paper titled Digital Detox, the Need for Early Intervention in Moderating Digital Media Usage Among Adolescents, through which I explored consumer behavior, habit formation, and the need for information regulation, with a focus on tech-savvy adolescents. Soon after, I began conceiving a more comprehensive service initiative called Digital Detox, a project whose scope I am continually expanding by way of educational curriculums, advocacy campaigns, and grassroots school interventions. In fact, as a part of the Digital Detox Bridge program, I work closely with students, teachers, and parents alike to start meaningful conversations around digital overuse and implementable remediation measures. In particular, I created a 10-module guide called Helping Teens Switch Off, a guide to digital detoxing, through which I facilitate desensitized education around the use of digital media platforms and reinforce positive ways of online interaction. Starting from just a survey within my own school to gauge digital engagement patterns, I was able to scale my impact to benefit over 120,000 students across the North Anglia family of schools. With the current era of technology migrating towards the possibility of virtual metaverses and VR, AR driven environments, I'm even more concerned about the unmoderated virtual interactions that lie ahead of us. Digital technologies such as these also raise pertinent questions around global technological disparities and accessibility, and pose the threat of ever-widening socioeconomic gaps and the high variability in the ways in which we fundamentally experience the world. At its core, these are the reasons why I'm passionate about working towards safe and moderated use of digital media and driven to ensure safer virtual and real-world environments for everyone.
Thank you so much, Arena. Now, Gitanjali, as an inventor of solutions from clean water to anti-bullying technology, what can you tell us about leveraging technology to create social change?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry if there's any like background noise or anything. I'm currently in a dorm at MIT for the summer. So can you hear me okay, by the way? Perfect. So I wanted to kick this off by talking about how interesting of a time we're truly living in right now, right? We have the best technology to leverage and we have the worst of problems that also exist, right? We're talking about climate change, pandemics, and all these issues that we have opportunities to resolve. So we need to target solutions that are available to the problems now, and that too at an unimaginable pace. And we need to have predetermined processes, laws, and policies reviewed and thought through. And we need to have them ready when the next pandemic hits us, or when the next natural disaster happens, or global warming impacts us in the next way possible. And we know we aren't escaping them, but if we have the technology and the process on our side, then we have the opportunity to save people as well. So basically what I'm trying to summarize here is, while tech by itself is a powerful tool to create social change, processes, policies, and laws should all work hand in hand as well. So for example, I can invent a lead detection tool, but worldwide we should focus more on creating federal policies or procedures to test for drinking water, at least in schools, because we know lead and other contaminants affect children the most. Another, I guess, idea here is we can have better carbon efficient mechanisms, but we need to have policies to give incentives to organizations to make a change for a social cause. So one can't live without the other, right? I always like to say that we spent so much time talking about how kids can raise their voices, but putting it out there that kids can use their hands as well to build and create ideas that can impact the future and the community at large.
Thank you so much, Gitanjali. That was very insightful. And Mr. Lewin, in your view, what is the role of companies in creating a positive digital world for children? And how has the LEGO Group's own approach to respecting and supporting children's rights in the digital environment evolved over time?
Well, thank you, Nakshatra. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me today. And thank you to Arana and Gitanjali as well for really incredibly powerful testimony. I love the idea of a collective digital detox. And actually, it's something that I practice every Friday evening in my own home, switch off all devices, and I impose for now the same on my children. I'm not sure how long it will last, but I'm certainly treasuring the time where it's holding for now. At the LEGO Group, children are our role models, and wherever we engage with them, we always put their interests first by respecting and supporting their rights and their well-being. We were the first toy company to sign up to the children's rights and business principles, and we're committed to implementing children's rights and promoting their well-being across our business. And we actually have an exciting anniversary this year, together with the 10-year anniversary of those principles, because at the LEGO Group, we're celebrating 90 years of play. I note my colleague from Ericsson at 140 years, that's very impressive. We're proud of our 90 and that we're still going strong. And that's 90 years of bringing wonderful play experiences to children and their families. And throughout our history, we've sought to build trust with children, with parents and caregivers by consistently protecting children's rights, their safety and their well-being across all the interactions we have with them. That might be through our physical product, the iconic Lego brick, or when we engage with children online through digital play experiences, to when we work with children on product testing and co-creating ideas. And we all know the importance of digital experiences for children today. As we heard from my co-panelists and our hosts, digital tech is integral and present in the most formative stages of life, representing an opportunity, but also a potential risk to children's rights and well-being. And so as part of our partnership with UNICEF since 2015, we have reached many milestones, including an industry-first digital child safety policy to secure the safety and well-being of children interacting with our digital products. And we co-created the Child Online Safety Tool, so other companies can understand and embed the protection of children's rights online more effectively. So our commitment to digital child safety has evolved, building on protecting children online to empowering them and their families to become responsible digital citizens, to be aware of their rights in the digital environment, and to have the skills needed to thrive online. And today, we recognize the digital world as we know it was not designed with children in mind. And frankly, at most points, we've got to recognize it's not fit for children. Society and governments have understood this and trying to prioritize children's safety in the current online environment. But this is a critical moment. Given the importance of technology to children and the discussions around immersive tech, around the metaverse, around various AI systems and applications, there's an opportunity, I believe, to develop a more thoughtful approach toward advancing positive digital innovation, the type of innovation that meaningfully anchors children's rights and their well-being at the center of its design. As my co-panelist from Microsoft, Joe Brazier, said earlier, we need a clear plan for children and the next generation of internet. So what should companies do, to answer your question, to create a positive online environment for children that respects their rights? There are three things that I believe the companies should have in mind and steps they should take. One is that we need to actively recognize children as a distinct group with their unique and evolving capacities and capabilities acknowledged and their rights and well-being promoted. The second is to consistently prioritize children's voices by consulting and co-creating with them, just as Executive Director Russell articulated. This is part of how we work at the Lego Group. We regularly consult with children, and we find it taps into the most incredible insights, imagination, and frank dialogue, and it makes us better. Thirdly, companies must secure rigorous safeguards across their services as a non-negotiable, but you can't stop there. We must all look to build upon safety by design in a way that enables children's access to the considerable advantages of technology to children, providing positive benefits to their well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lewin. Now, Gitanjali, one of the anti-cyberbullying digital solutions you have conceptualized is Kindly, which you are working on with UNICEF to develop as a digital public good. Why is it important for children and youth to co-create innovative solutions? And why is it important for anti-cyberbullying resources to be developed and supported by public and private stakeholders?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think we'll start with a concept that we all know and love, which is social media, right? We introduce social media as a tool to kind of connect with other people, but people are slowly starting to understand how it can be split into pros and cons and the effect on mental health, right? And who understands social media like youth and kids? And so I think that's a big part of why children play such a huge part in innovative solutions, is because we're looking at things that are using our ever-evolving language better than, you know, my parents and their parents as well. And I think a lot of the negative implications of what people think of kids is that they're impulsive or hot-headed. But when you think of it in a positive manner, right? Kids have nothing restricting their minds, right? We have nothing to lose. We have fewer responsibilities than adults. And our cause and effect, part of our brain quite literally takes a while to grow up fully. And so accordingly, the tool or solution that we're coming up with should capture all aspects of how we behave, right? Especially when we go back to cyberbullying by itself. So naturally, the groups that understand the problems better are the ones who should be encouraged to create solutions. And I think another big part of it is looking at the cross-disciplinary fields, right? We're increasingly seeing way to not only just one field, right? We're not just seeing science or math or language arts or whatever, but one field can't work without another one. And as the world is growing up, the kids are growing up with it and also recognizing a similar idea as well. And you were talking about anti-bullying resources and why that's important to be developed and supported. But the impact on mental health because of cyberbullying destroys the life of everyone, right? And everyone's faced cyberbullying, whether it's in a small way or a big way. And more studies show that cyberbullying and violence or even suicidal thoughts go together in most cases. So it's important to come up with some sort of effective solution that needs to be adopted and supported by everyone. And so first and foremost, schools should have a policy to report at the appropriate time, right? Parents have a role and policy organizations have a role. Private social media companies have a role. Nonprofits need to provide resources to both the bully and the victims, right? And if all these organizations invest a part of their revenue to prevent cyberbullying, whether it's a process or technology or a policy, together in a few years, we don't have to talk about this. And we can focus on other important things that we're seeing out there as well. But another thing that we're slowly increasingly realizing is that the solution and problem usually start with the bully, right? And the more we target there, the more we give them a chance, the more we give them the opportunity to tackle the real problem. That's exactly what's going to solve the problem in the long run, which is exactly what Kindly aims to do, right? And so to all of you, don't know what that is, that's Boston for you, but to everyone in the audience here, right? you can make a difference and contribute to Kindly, whether you're adults or youth, by just typing in a single phrase on the Kindly landing page, and you can flag it and train the AI engine to understand if it's cyberbullying or not. And I think it's super interesting because it allows everyone to be a part of the solution, and the algorithm gets to learn from your input and can help even more people with that as well. And so something as simple as kind of making it aware that everyone goes through it and everyone can come up with a solution for it is, I think, an approachable solution that we all need to take forward.
Thank you so much, Gitanjali. Now, Arena, how would you define the responsibility that young people, governments, and companies have in ensuring that the internet is safe and accessible for every child?
So there is no doubt that the internet has been a transformative tool in our lifetimes, changing the way we exist in the world and connect with each other in a novel and exciting ways. It is impossible to think of a world without the pervasive presence of our smartphones, computers, and the vast networks of information and communication. Yet I believe that we must dare to imagine ourselves disconnected from the digital world, especially for the sake of the generations to come, to shield them from the addictive and harmful impacts of overdependence on digital technologies and share the joys of moderation. After the pandemic transformed our lives and pigeonholed us into digital spaces, I was forced to reflect upon my and my peers' relationships to technology, and thus to each other. On reflection, I realized that we were using the technologies available to us without active intention. That is, every young person around me had simply grown up with these technologies and was unaware of a life without them. I want to take this opportunity to come up with actionable solutions towards a healthier balance between us, our work, and our free time, and thus start working towards digital detox, my initiative geared towards building a new relationship with the offline world. I believe that young people can take on the responsibility to form new forms of connections between themselves by having the courage to dream of new relationships, especially now, as we emerge from a world where the pandemic has changed our social norms completely. The most impactful action we can take is to educate ourselves, raise awareness amongst our peers, and ultimately learn how to pick up new habits, study techniques, and hobbies that don't need us to be on screens, but rather encourage us to work with each other. The Digital Detox Program, supported by the curriculum and the Digital Detox Day, hopes to do exactly that at my school and hopefully one day at schools across the world. However, I believe that governments, educational institutions, and companies have a special role to play in ensuring that our use of digital platforms is moderated, targeted, and supplemental, and not central to our learning. Without taking reactionary measures that restrict our ability to connect with the world, I believe in advocating for the measures to educate students about privacy, cybersecurity, physical and mental health, and the risks of putting one's information on public platforms. This can only happen with a holistic and multifaceted approach. Educators and parents especially must be intentional about promoting offline activities for their wards, encouraging digital time limits for toddlers and teenagers alike. Further, social media companies do not restrict teenagers, but rather promote special safety nets that ensure their security online, such as special security measures for underage accounts to prevent the risks associated with the ever-expanding digital world. An idea, a dream, and a tiny step forward towards a different world is all we need to begin our digital detox. For me, taking responsibility means having the difficult conversation, thinking about the long-term effects and consequences of the decisions we make, and ultimately being actively involved and responsible for our use of technology, rather than passive recipients who are not thinking about safety and harm. I hope that we can begin this journey together, motivating those empowered to think about these questions and ultimately emerge as a productive, safe, and joyful society, both online and offline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arena. Now, Ms. Lewin, if we were hosting this discussion in 5 years' time, what do you think are the main topics that we'd be tackling then? And what would you hope that we'd have achieved by then as well?
Well, Nakshatra, my hope is that in 5 years' time, we would have meaningfully anchored the rights and well-being of children in the design of our digital environments, and that probably as necessary, laws reflect that as well. I believe that the discussion prevalent in our political and policy discourse around risk and harm and protection and privacy will and must evolve to ensure that they take into account the full benefits and opportunities that tech may have for children's rights and well-being. And there are positives and there are obviously risks there as well. our engagement has shown that the understanding of the potential benefits of digital technology is much lower than the potential harms it brings. There's a bit of a paradox in the way that parents think about it. They put the technology in front of their kids, but they're very concerned and feel inadequate in their ability to deal with the negative impacts. And to truly make the right decisions for children, parents and their guardians, we need for them a model of innovation and regulation that can accommodate both those negatives and the positives and understand the relationship between the two. So in order to develop our understanding of the potential benefits, we worked with UNICEF to launch a project called the Responsible Innovation in Technology for Children, RITEC. And we work with UNICEF and a number of child specialist academic institutions around the world. And we've just released the first phase of the research. It consulted with more than 300 children across 13 very diverse geographies to understand what it means for them to play and be well in a digital environment. What does well-being mean for them? And there were some great insights coming out of that. And these insights, combined with data from other large surveys on children's digital lives, were consolidated into a framework that we released with 8 child-centric well-being outcomes that digital design for children can factor in. The next phase of the research that we're working with our partners on now will go deeper to understand how those digital play experiences impact on the child and those well-being outcomes of the framework. And from this, we hope that project will provide business with access to evidence-based tools that will enable design choices that can positively influence aspects of child well-being. You can all search for UNICEF RITEC to read more about this project, and we welcome people to come on that journey with us. So we are on a journey, but we believe it's critical that we create this blueprint for the online environment that can both protect and nurture children's potential. And governments have a role to play in that, I believe, by incentivizing and encouraging companies to design for the benefits of tech alongside a critical mitigation of risk. So using well-being as a priority objective for digital innovation and design has the potential to usher in a much more sustainable, human-centric future. And I hope that in 5 years' time, that we will have achieved this or have gone some way to achieve it, and that digital experiences for children genuinely grounded with their rights and well-being in mind are prevalent across the market.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lewin. We're now reaching the last part of our panel, and I would like to invite again Dr. Malamjit, SRSG VAC and ChildFund Alliance, Ms. Gardinier, to share their experiences and perspectives on policies and actions. So SRSG VAC, Ms. Malamjit, we know that in spite of the benefits that it brings to the children, the internet can also be a source of harm. What key steps are needed to keep children safe online?
I will share with you 3 messages. I think many things were already told, and I want really to congratulate Ed Lewin because we are on the same way. First, I think we need to have a better knowledge and understanding, because what means harm online? And we know that we have many forms that are evolving, and we need to think about them all. And you know that it includes exposure to violence and inappropriate content, hate speech, cyberbullying, fake news, gaming addiction, invasion of children's privacy, stigma, discrimination, xenophobia, and websites that promote self-harm and suicide, to name a few. And we know also that internet has also opened a rapidly growing global market for the production, distribution, and consumption of child sexual abuse material, including through live streaming. And we know that offenders and criminal networks are constantly moving and evolving more quickly than governments due to encrypted networks, darknet, cryptocurrencies that provide anonymity for offenders to engage in trafficking, smuggling, exploitation, and enrollment of children in criminal or violent extremist groups. So we need to have on mind all this stuff. My second message is to adopt a broad vision and a child rights and cross-sectoral approach. We must remember that violence against children exists on a continuum. It could start online, finish offline, or vice versa. So we need to have this broad vision. So it means that we need to act on several fronts with true convergence, and cooperation and mobilization is needed at all levels of government, at national, local, regional, and global, NGOs, law enforcement, industry, and diverse professional groups. We need to move from project approach and multiple plans that are not duly implemented, that are not scaled up, and to make sure that child rights to safe and empowering digital world is embedded in the overall national and local development plan. Because if we are not doing it, we are going to continue scaling it. We need, as highlighted by Ed Lewin, a solid legal, political, and institutional framework with enough human and financial resources that support proactive detection and prevention, provide access to child-friendly reporting mechanisms and justice, and to end impunity. Legislation and regulation take time to enact, but risks to children in the digital world emerge quickly and spread rapidly. Hence, the ICT industry has a special responsibility. And as highlighted by Ed Lewin, we need more and more action on child safety by design and proactive detection. This is really important. And we need also to start thinking about how we are going to balance right to protection and other rights, such as right to privacy, right to information, right to education, right to freedom of expression, right to freedom of association and assembly, including for child activists and human rights defenders. So this calls for a whole of society approach, strong political will, as well as sustainable and multi-stakeholder partnership with accountability mechanisms and monitoring. It calls for involving and empowering teachers, school counselors, social workers, healthcare workers, families, and students in the prevention, early detection of violence online, as well as in raising awareness and changing attitudes and norms toward violence against children. My third message, children need to be involved and empowered in prevention and response. As they have stated, they often see violence online where adults fail to recognize it. Inclusive and meaningful child participation and involvement as part of the solution is not an option, it is a must. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Malamjit. Ms. Gardinier, ChildFund has sorry.
التمويل.
Ms. Gardinier, how can tech industry leaders, governments, and children work together to strengthen industry codes to safeguard them online?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and also for giving us the opportunity to follow a number of really informative presentations by all the presenters today, some of whom are talking about their measures, innovative approaches to protecting children online. So really encouraging to hear this, because we know that we have a lot of challenges. I think what we talked about today is that the online threats to children exist. And one of these threats is on sexual exploitation and abuse crimes, and these recognize no borders. So, as I look back at what we're talking about today, we're really trying to build some kind of a cooperative framework amongst different sectors so that we can protect children better. And each of us are doing our part in this and will continue to do so. We also know children very savvy are online, increasingly becoming more familiar with the net, but they're still often less likely to be aware of the risks, the consequences, and the safeguards. And they're also less likely to be aware of their rights associated with personal data. As we know, the online safety industry codes, which are created by governments, are a means to regulate the tech industry's participants when it comes to children's online access, exposure, and distribution of content. And we know that these codes also apply to all online services likely to be accessed by a child, which includes apps, games, programs, search engines, educational sites, and more. Now, while the best interests of children are supposed to be a primary consideration, the reality is that children's protection is sometimes negated due to privacy concerns, and working with tech leaders and governments to achieve this critical balance between privacy and a child's right to be protected is fundamental. We know by the very existence of a proliferation of online sexual abuse and exploitation materials that the safety of children online is increasingly at risk, and of course we can and must do better. Regulations that require the prioritization of children's best interest are essential in ensuring the digital interactions of children and young people and making sure that these interactions are safe and private. There are regulations already in place, for example, in the United Kingdom, Ireland, the Netherlands, France, and Sweden. Proposals are in consideration in California, Australia, and the European Union. One example is the United Kingdom's age-appropriate design code presents a model of regulation that could be adopted elsewhere to ensure children's best interests are realized in platform design. For those of you not familiar with it, this design code contains 15 standards that online services need to follow to ensure that they are complying with their obligations to protect children's data online. Children shouldn't have to wait until the governments pass the specific regulations before they can benefit from these types of protections. And our recommendation, along with many other civil society partners, is that the online platforms should adopt a child rights by design or a safety by design approach across their global service. And in conclusion, tech industry leaders, governments, and children can all work together to undertake a risk assessment of online service features that pose a risk to young users and work together to roll out the steps to mitigate these risks and maximize children's safety and privacy. And we've talked about this today. Children are experts of their own experiences and are best equipped to bring these new perspectives and knowledge to the process. As Najat says, their participation enables decision makers to better meet the changing needs of their users, including children and youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gardinier, and thank you so much to all the panelists today for your very insightful responses on our agenda. Just to summarize all the points that we had from our discussion today, as we had 16 questions and 8 panelists, it can be concluded that we really need connectivity and education to ensure that every child has access to the internet and that the digital divide is bridged. And we also need to anchor children's rights and ensure that we prioritize well-being in technology. Mediation of the internet is one necessary medium of ensuring safety, and this can only be possible if we understand the harms that are exposed to every day through the internet. And digital detox need to be implemented to ensure that every child is safe online. But most importantly, children need to be involved in conversations that are happening about children and their futures. So these are some of the points that we need to take home today. And thank you so much to everybody present here. Wishing you a good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are.